What if the priest Abraham bowed to never died? Most Christians know Melchizedek from a single scene in Genesis. He appears in chapter 14, offers bread and wine, blesses the patriarch, and vanishes. 3 verses. No backstory. No epilogue. The assumption has always been simple. He was a righteous king. A brief cameo in Abraham's story. Nothing more. But ancient texts preserved in the caves of Qumran tell a different story. The Dead Sea community devoted an entire scroll to this figure, 11:13, the Melchizedek document. And the author of Hebrews spent an entire chapter dissecting those same 3 verses, arriving at a conclusion that should unsettle us. Melchizedek has no father, no mother, no genealogy, no beginning of days, no end of life. The silence around his origins wasn't an accident, it was the point. The scroll was found in Cave 11 at Qumran, among the last major discoveries before the site was fully excavated. It's fragmentary, damaged by time and moisture, but what remains is coherent enough to reconstruct. The community that preserved it also preserved 1st Enoch, the War Scroll, and other texts describing cosmic hierarchies and divine councils. They were not interested in folklore. They were mapping the architecture of heaven. And in that architecture, Melchizedek occupied a place that should make us pause. The document is often dated between 100 BCE and 100 CE, placing it in the same theological atmosphere that produced the letter to the Hebrews. Both texts are wrestling with the same problem. How do you account for a priest who appears without lineage, who blesses the father of Israel, and then disappears without death? Hebrews gives us the language plainly. Without father, without mother, without descent, having neither beginning of days nor end of life, but made like unto the Son of God, abideth a priest continually. That's not poetic exaggeration, it's ontological description. The 11:13 scroll goes further. It identifies Melchizedek not merely as a historical king of Salem, but as a heavenly figure who executes divine judgment in the final age. The text interprets passages from Leviticus 25 and Isaiah 61 through the lens of Melchizedek's role in the cosmic jubilee, the moment when all debts are forgiven, all captives freed, and the claims of Belial are broken. In this framework, Melchizedek is not a character in a story. He is an agent of the Most High, standing in the divine council, wielding authority that transcends the priesthood of Aaron and the lineage of Levi. Both texts treat the absence of genealogy not as missing information, but as theological statement. In the ancient Near East, genealogy was everything. It conferred legitimacy, inheritance rights, tribal identity. A priest without genealogy was either illegitimate or something else entirely. Hebrews and 11:13 argue for the latter. The silence wasn't mystery. It was revelation. So what does the text actually say? Let's start with the canonical anchor. Genesis 14, Abraham returns from battle, having just rescued his nephew Lot from a coalition of kings. He's exhausted, morally strained, carrying the weight of violence. And then Melchizedek appears king of Salem, priest of the Most High God. He brings bread and wine. He blesses Abraham. And Abraham, the father of nations, the one to whom God made covenant promises, gives Melchizedek a tenth of everything. Then Melchizedek vanishes. No death, no descendants, no tomb. The text offers no explanation for where he came from or where he went. Psalm 110, verse 4, deepens the mystery. The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. You are a priest forever, in the order of Melchizedek. Forever. Not a temporary priesthood passed down through sons. Not a role contingent on tribal affiliation. A priesthood that does not end. Hebrews picks up this thread and pulls it taut. The argument is precise. Levi, the ancestor of all Israelite priests, was still in the body of Abraham when Abraham tithed to Melchizedek. Therefore, Levi himself, through his forefather, acknowledged Melchizedek's superiority. The priesthood that came through Levi, the entire sacrificial system of the temple, is subordinate to the order of Melchizedek. And if the Levitical priesthood were sufficient, why would God establish another priest according to a different order? The answer Hebrews offers is stark. The old priesthood was tied to mortal men who died and were replaced. Melchizedek's priesthood is tied to indestructible life. Jesus, who came from the tribe of Judah and had no legal claim to the Levitical priesthood, is named priest forever after the order of Melchizedek, not because he earned it through lineage, but because he is it ontologically, eternally. Now the 11Q13 scroll, the fragments are difficult, but the structure is clear. The text interprets the Jubilee regulations from Leviticus 25 as cosmic events presided over by Melchizedek. In the year of Jubilee, debts were canceled, slaves freed, land returned. The scroll applies this symbolism to the final age. Melchizedek will proclaim liberty to the captives, atone for the sons of light, and execute judgment on Belial and the spirits aligned with him. The scroll names Melchizedek repeatedly more than 9 times in the surviving fragments. It calls him by a term that scholars debate, Elohim, which can mean God, divine being, or heavenly judge. In one passage, the text appears to place Melchizedek in the role described in Psalm 82, where God stands in the divine assembly and renders judgment among the Elohim. Whether this makes Melchizedek an angel, a pre-incarnate manifestation of the Son, or something else entirely, the Qumran community did not clarify. What they did clarify is this: he is not merely human, and his work is not finished. He presides over the final Jubilee. He breaks the claims of the accuser. He liberates those held in bondage by false genealogies, by systems of debt and shame, by powers that derive their authority from earthly succession. And he does this not because he fought his way into position, but because his priesthood precedes all others. It was there before Aaron. It was there before Levi. It was there before Abraham walked into the valley of Shaveh and met a king without origin. If Melchizedek never died, where is he now, and what is he doing? The priesthood that began before Levi doesn't end with Jesus. It is Jesus. This matters because most of us have been taught to understand priesthood as institutional role, something you apply for, something conferred by ordination, by denominational authority, by lineage. You become a priest by meeting certain requirements, by tracing your authority back through an unbroken chain. The Melchizedek priesthood demolishes that framework. It is ontological, not institutional. It is based on being, not doing. Jesus did not qualify for the Levitical priesthood. He came from the wrong tribe. According to the law of Moses, he had no right to approach the altar, no authorization to offer sacrifice. Yet Hebrews declares him the ultimate high priest, not in spite of his lack of Levitical credentials, but because his priesthood operates on a different plane entirely. It is the order of Melchizedek, eternal, non-genealogical, indestructible. We spend our lives seeking legitimacy through lineage. We build identities around family names, degrees, affiliations, roles. We need to know where we came from in order to know who we are. And there is nothing wrong with honoring lineage. But the Melchizedek priesthood suggests something deeper, that your truest identity precedes all earthly labels. You do not become a priest of this order. You recognize what you always were. The Dead Sea community understood this. That's why they preserved a scroll about a figure who appears for 3 verses in Genesis. They weren't interested in his biography. They were interested in his ontology. Melchizedek represents the priesthood that exists outside the systems of legitimacy we construct. He shows up without credentials, without institutional backing, without a pedigree to justify his authority. And yet when he appears, patriarchs bow. The scroll's description of Melchizedek's work in the final Jubilee carries profound psychological weight. He proclaims liberty to captives. He cancels debts. He breaks the claim of Belial over the sons of light. Translate that into the language of inner life. The eternal priesthood breaks the power of systems that enslave us through shame, through false narratives about who we are, through debts we were never meant to carry. The voices that say you are defined by your failures, by your family history, by the roles you've been assigned. Those are the voices of a lesser priesthood, one tied to mortality and succession. The voice of the Melchizedek order speaks from outside time, from a place where your identity was written before your name was spoken. Consider the moment Melchizedek appears to Abraham. It's not during a religious ceremony. It's after a battle. Abraham has just waded through violence and moral complexity, rescuing his nephew from captivity. He's carrying the weight of what he's done, and into that moment steps a priest with no introduction, offering bread and wine. Not judgment, not a reminder of unworthiness, sustenance, blessing. And then he's gone. We meet the eternal priesthood in moments of crisis, not in controlled religious settings. It shows up unannounced, outside the system, carrying bread and wine. It doesn't ask for your ursum. It doesn't check your lineage. It simply offers what you need and asks for recognition. Do you see what this is? The paradox cuts both ways. The one with no origin story holds the ultimate origin, existence outside time. The one with no death record holds the key to resurrection life. Your truest priesthood has no beginning because it was never born. It doesn't depend on what you've achieved or where you came from. It depends on what you are, eternally, beneath the layers of identity you've accumulated. The Dead Sea community knew Melchizedek wasn't a historical figure to study. He was an eternal reality to encounter, and they built a theology around that encounter. One that insists the priesthood of heaven is not waiting for you to earn it. It's waiting for you to remember it. So let's sit with this for a moment. Pause the analysis. Quiet the need to categorize or resolve. And ask yourself the question the scroll implies. Who were you before your name was spoken? Not the person shaped by your family's expectations. Not the identity constructed from achievements or failures. Not the self defined by roles you've played or titles you've earned. Who were you in the place that Melchizedek inhabits the space outside genealogy, outside time, outside the systems that grant or withhold legitimacy? Sit with the image of Melchizedek. No father, no mother, no genealogy, no beginning of days, no end of life. What would it mean to discover that same timelessness in yourself? Not as metaphor, but as ontological truth, that beneath the layers of conditioning and identity, something in you has always existed and will never cease. Something that doesn't need permission to be priestly. Because priesthood, real priesthood, isn't a role you assume. It's what you are when everything borrowed falls away. Now, if you're able, I invite you to speak this prayer out loud. Let the words move through your breath, become sound, become presence. Or if you prefer, say it silently in the quiet of your heart. There's no performance here, just participation in something older than language. Priest forever. You who stand outside the genealogies, outside the systems of succession, outside the logic of death and replacement, I come to you not with credentials, but with recognition. I confess my addiction to legitimacy, my need to prove I belong, my fear that without the right lineage, I am nobody. I have built altars to achievement. I have bowed to voices that promised me identity if I could only meet their requirements. And I am tired. Break the claim of every genealogy that binds me. Not the lineage of blood and family, which I honor, but the genealogies of shame, of false debt, of identities assigned by systems that do not know my name. Let me see what was written before I was born. Let me remember the priesthood that does not begin or end, that does not depend on who my father was or what I have done, that simply is because you are, and in you I have always been. Let me meet you as Melchizedek met Abraham, In the aftermath, when the battle is over, and I am carrying the weight of what I could not avoid. Bring bread and wine, bring sustenance without explanation, blessing without interrogation. Ask nothing but my recognition, and when I offer it, when I bow, when I give the tenth, when I acknowledge what I cannot manufacture vanish again. Leave me with the blessing, not the biography. Let the silence teach me what words cannot. I do not ask to understand the order of Melchizedek. I ask to stand in it, to inhabit the priesthood that was mine before time, that will be mine after time, that is mine now, if I can stop performing long enough to notice. Make me a priest, not of institutions, but of being, not of doing, but of recognition, not of mortal succession, but of indestructible life. And when the accuser comes with his ledger, his genealogies of shame, his claims that I am defined by what I lack, let the eternal priesthood answer. Let Melchizedek stand in the council and speak the word that cancels debts, that proclaims jubilee, that says, "This one was never yours to name." Amen. Take a breath. Let the prayer settle, and if this reached something in you that needed a name, let it reach the ones still searching for theirs. Share it quietly. And if you want more from this archive of hidden texts, subscribe not for us, but for the seeker who will find this next. The priest without a genealogy is still standing at the edge of your crisis, holding bread and wine, asking nothing but your recognition.